Hi, Jessica here. I have a sister and two brothers. We are a multi-child family and I'm the big sis. And in addition, I don't look like others at all. Mom says it's all great-great-granny's genes. I dye my hair honey wheat not to look totally different. I've just graduated from school and decided not to enter any college. My family is poor. We can barely afford food and never buy any clothes. Thanks to charity or we'd wear rags. Well, it's no big deal. Soon I'll have a job and our life changes. But not many companies were willing to hire a former schoolgirl with no working experience. Only one cafe near my home agreed. They offered $6 per hour. Not much, especially if you take into account that in San Francisco the same job pays all $20. The boss, Mr. Wood, immediately hired me with no probation. Wow, thanks! The first day was really fine. I used my tips to buy plenty of food. If this continues like that, soon we'll forget being poor. The next day, a customer left me a $100 tip and whispered to my ear I looked stunning and he'd visit us more often. What? I turned my head confusedly and saw the boss staring at me. Oh no! I hope he doesn't think I'm flirting with the customers. After work, I hurried home, but someone suddenly grabbed me in the street. I screamed and saw Mr. Wood. What are you doing? Let me go! But he embraced me even tighter and whispered I was so seductive. I barely managed to break free, and at home I told Mom everything. She was furious and prohibited me to go to this work again. Next morning I informed Mr. Wood I was quitting. He shouted into the phone that I'd regret this. Finding another cafe was no problem, but just as I came and introduced myself, they shoved me out. This repeated in every other place, and finally I got it. This jerk had defamed me, and I was on the no-fly list. I felt like giving up. And just yesterday there certainly was the light in the end of the tunnel. Suddenly Mom entered and claimed she'd found me a secretarian position in a huge investment company. What? How did you manage to do this? I immediately went for the job interview held by the head, Mr. Clark himself. He announced my probation would take 3 days instead of 2 weeks because he was in dire need of secretary. Thank you, Mr. Clark. I decided to celebrate the end of my probation with a new hairstyle. It was about time I changed my look and returned to my natural hair color. I'm a business lady now, working for an investment company. In a sense, I'm even the face of it. So my work started, and the very first day I had made a huge mistake forgetting to remind my boss about his meeting with the depositors. They'd waited for an hour, and then one of them came shouting at me and calling me a stupid cow. All of a sudden Mr. Clark came and demanded that the offender apologize to me. I was so shocked I couldn't move. How embarrassing! That's all my worries and nerves. I must pull myself together and never let this happen again. When Mr. Clark was back from the conference, he asked me to appoint his meeting with a new investor. I opened the planner but was distracted by a phone call. It was exactly that investor asking to move the meeting 1 hour later, and then I felt electrified. I'd forgot the time. Oh no! I had nothing else to do than to go to Mr. Clark and confess my inattention. He'll definitely fire me now. There's a crowd of candidates for the secretary position. The boss stared at me and said it was always hard to get used to a new job, so he'd let me leave earlier today and give me the first bonus of $200. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Do such things even happen? Sure enough, I'd made a posh dinner at home. We were trying some products for the first time. Everyone was so happy. Mom, but that's really weird. I'd made 2 grave mistakes, but he didn't say anything and even let me go home earlier. And his attitude changed dramatically exactly after I dyed my hair my natural color. What could that mean? Mom suddenly got all irritated and claimed it was nonsense and my hair had nothing to do with that. And Mr. Clark was behaving normally, not doing anything odd. Come on! That cafe guy was behaving normally, and this... And then I got it. Sure, how haven't I guessed before? He just liked me. Those bosses are all the same. Since then, I was even more nervous at work. What do I do? Wait until he behaves as that cafe jerk or quit now? But if so, where do I find another job? I was lost in thought and accidentally overturned my cup of coffee right on the working laptop. It smoked and turned off. Oh no! There was the planner and all Mr. Clark's life. seemed my question was solved itself. I inhaled deeply and walked into his office. "Mr. Clark, you need to fire me. I've just spilled my coffee on the laptop which had all your meetings and tasks for months ahead." He looked at me and said there was nothing to worry about. He'd just call a repairman. And then I couldn't take it anymore. "How is it nothing to worry about, Mr. Clark? Your attitude is abnormal. Admit it. Do you love me?" The pause lingered. Then he came closer and whispered, "I love you so much," trying to embrace me. I jumped back and spurted out, "You should be ashamed. You are old enough to be my father." And I headed to the exit proudly. Mr. Clark replied something. Did my ears fail me? Mr. Clark repeated, "But I am your father." Then he told me he and Mom used to date for a long time, but his father insisted Mr. Clark went for a traineeship in another country for several years. They had to break up. Mom revenged him by saying yes to my dad's proposal, and then she understood she was pregnant. She had doubts about the father, but right after seeing my hair color, she understood everything. She never told anything to her husband and asked Mr. Clark to disappear from our life. And now she came to him herself because of our poverty and asked him to hire me. I'm still astounded and I don't know what to do. Should I tell Mom I know everything or not? And what about my dads? Help me, please. Did you like the video? Subscribe and give us a like. Support our channel. Thank you.
I was sitting near the principal's office. Minutes felt like hours, but then the door opened. I saw my mom and was stunned. She was devastated. I knew that fool Evans would tell her too much. I just hate him, damn. What should I do now? I was coming home from school cursing everything. Lame day. Ed is a guy I've liked for a long time and he never even looked at me. He was discussing this League of Legends with the boys all the time. He's an esports player, you see. And he's too busy to hang out with girls. Mom was also late at work again. But never mind. I'll try to fix it. I came home and immediately took out my laptop. A tab with the dating site was already open on it. No, it's not for me. I liked Ed. I was running a page on a dating site on behalf of my mom. I just wanted so much for her to have something in her life besides work. But so far, all of my attempts failed. I direct messaged with several candidates, but they were all strange. To put it mildly, one of them was talking all day about the peculiarities of breeding guinea pigs. I clicked block without the twinge of conscience. But the next guy put me in an even greater stupor. That day, as usual, I was bored in math when suddenly a message from a dating site appeared on my phone. Having nothing better to do, I decided to answer the weirdo straight from school, but in response, I received a whole speech about the fractal similarity of the infinitely eternal. What? I could barely contain my laughter. The teacher even made a remark to me a couple of times. But imagine my surprise when I, returning from school, saw this idiot right in front of our house. Wait, how did he find out our address? He was standing with a huge bouquet of roses and a foil cap on his head. Apparently, he was catching direct signals from space. But then my heart fell to my feet. Mom's car came around the corner. Mom got out of the car and looked at the strange man in a foil hat with bewilderment. Suddenly, this weirdo came up to her, got down on one knee, and said that they were brought together by the goddess Lachesis herself, the patroness of fate. What is he talking about? He himself is some Lachesis. I was dying of shame. Mom just looked at me blankly. Here it seems this patron of cringe began to guess something. He handed my mom his phone with an open page of her profile on a dating site. Mom didn't understand anything for the first couple of seconds. But then she looked up at me and whispered, "Personal data column." No one but you could have known that, Liz. Why? I immediately blushed. Mom, no, you misunderstood everything. After the incident, Mom didn't talk to me for a week, and she also forced me to delete all profiles from dating sites. So how am I going to find her a mate now? In order to somehow distract myself, I decided to start a conversation with Ed at all costs. But then it dawned on me, if he talks about his League of Legends day and night, why shouldn't I discuss it with him? I downloaded the game for myself and sat with it until 6 in the morning. Now I played every night. Homework? I'll put up my grades. But now I could hold a conversation with Ed and his friends. You should have seen his face when I cut into their conversation about the support service. I was in a great mood finally. I had some progress in love life. But suddenly I was called to the principal. My grades were not perfect before, and now they completely dropped. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to upset my mom again. I had most trouble with history. The very next day, we were announced that we would have a new teacher in history. Maybe this was my chance. Yeah, as if this new nerd made us learn 5 times more. I only got F's in history and thought with horror about how my mom would find out about all of this. One day, I gathered my classmates at recess. What if we all stage a riot and this arrogant nerd gets fired? I said with a sly smile. But suddenly there was a tense silence. I'm out. Someone suddenly said, I like him. We have never been told about history so coolly before. I agree with you, another responded. Liz, it's bullshit. This teacher is a normal dude. I couldn't believe my ears. When did you start liking cramming some nonsense? I looked at Ed hopefully. But he just looked away. Really? Well, okay, I'll have to cope on my own. But Mr. Evans got out of it every time. I put tags on his seat, interrupted him in class, but all in vain. But when I hid all his notes in the hope that without them, he would finally disgrace himself, he read everything flawlessly from memory. Damn it. I already hated that Mr. Evans. But one day, I was asked to go to the principal. He said he was calling my mom to school. I wanted to warn my mom somehow, but she arrived in half an hour. She even took time off from work for this. I was sitting near the principal's door and trying to eavesdrop on what they were talking about. Mr. Evans was there. He would tell my mom a foul lie. Minutes felt like hours. But then the door opened. I saw my mom and was stunned. She was devastated. We drove all the way home in silence. I wondered what Mom was thinking right now. She didn't say a word all evening. Mom sat silently in the kitchen and cried. It was unbearable. Mommy, I learned all the history, all the names and dates. Just don't be sad. But I did not dare to approach. I couldn't sleep at night. Damn, if it wasn't for that stupid Evans, everything would be fine. Now I just had to take revenge on him. I wouldn't leave him alone until I got him mad. And when he finally got angry, I would record his swearing on a dictaphone and give it to the principal. Dismissal was guaranteed. I barely waited for the end of the lesson. When the last of my classmates left the office, I resolutely approached Mr. Evans. But he just looked at me sadly. Oh, it's you, he mumbled. I just wanted to see you. I didn't know Margaret was your mom. I opened my mouth in surprise. Stop, Margaret? Mr. Evans hesitated. He reluctantly told me that they, it turns out, studied at the same college, dated, and even wanted to get married. Hey, this is some kind of prank, right? But Mr. Evans was absolutely serious. He said he was even offended that Margaret, my mother, found someone else so quickly and even gave birth to a child that is me. I was just numb. My mom never told me about it. In the evening, I was very uncomfortable. Where was she? Why didn't Mom tell me right away that she knew Mr. Evans? Something was not right here. As soon as Mom returned, I immediately began to bombard her with questions. At first, she tried to turn away, but then she looked me straight in the eye. That look made me uneasy. She said, Liz, I didn't want to tell you, but Mr. Evans is your father. What? Is this a joke? Mom, you're crazy. Mom just turned away sadly. No, it just can't be true. My mom quietly began to tell me more. It turns out that Mr. Evans didn't want children then, and Mom didn't agree to an abortion, so she thought the best solution would be just to run away and not ruin his life. Until today, no one else knew who my father really was. My jaw dropped. It turns out that I wanted my own dad to get kicked out of school. But it was he who gave me F's. You know, Liz, I never stopped loving him. I realized it after I saw him again at school. Mom whispered, Well. For some reason, I wanted to cry and run away. But I looked at Mom. She looked even worse. I tried to pull myself together. Gathering my thoughts, I said, I think you need to meet and discuss everything. Mom looked at me thoughtfully. Don't you mind? She asked. I silently shook my head. Hey Mom, hurry up or you'll be late for my graduation. We got into the car. Today is not only a celebration on the occasion of the end of the school year. I'm supposed to be given a diploma for deep knowledge in history. And my dad, Mr. Evans, will give it to me. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.